Have you ever tried to sew a buttonhole into knit fabric and it won't go through your machine? Your machine is eating it, or it just stretches out the buttonhole? Ugh, so annoying, right? Well, I've got some great tips for you today, and you are gonna learn how to put these buttonholes in knit fabric so they turn out perfectly. And no, we're not going to be sewing a piece of grosgrain ribbon on the back. Real quick before if you're enjoying Sewing Anastasia, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a lot. And if you want to learn more about sewing, well, make sure you check out my sewing classes in person and online. There's links down below in the description. So this month's pattern of the month, that's right, I have a pattern of the month club, check it out down below, is a cardigan. And the cardigan is knit and it needs buttonholes. All your cardigans have buttonholes, right? How do they do that? Well, the first thing we're gonna do is grab some interfacing that's either tearaway or water soluble. I have some tearaway interfacing here that I'm using today. And whatever you do, do not use fusible interface. You do not want this interfacing to be permanent. This is temporary interfacing. So I have a cardigan here and I would like to add 3 buttons to it. So I need to create 3 buttonholes right here. So I just need a piece of interfacing, maybe about 2 inches wide and however long this is. So just measure it on your project. So I'll probably make it about 6 inches long and 2 inches wide. And I'm gonna cut out 2 pieces that are about 2 inches wide and 6 inches long. That's right, we need 2 pieces. So I have my 2 pieces and now we're going to attach it to the cardigan. So to do this properly, so your machine doesn't get stuck and start chewing up the back of your knit fabric, could be a jersey fabric, could be a sweater, whatever it is, we want to really stabilize it. So we don't want to fuse it, make it permanent. We just want it to stay there while we're attaching these buttonholes. That's right, the interfacing is there to stabilize our garment while we're sewing. Now I'm going to lay the other piece of tearaway interfacing on top, and I'm just gonna line it up with the straight edge here of my cardigan. It's totally fine that this one's hanging out on the bottom. I wanna see it, so I'm gonna leave it there just so I can make sure it's all the way at the edge. And now I'm going to pin these layers together. We're gonna go through the cardigan, we're gonna go through the top and the bottom layer of the interfacing. And now that I have these layers attached on the back and the front, I can chalk out my buttonholes. So I want 1 button right here in the center. Now where you're placing your buttons on your project can be completely different, but I want 1 there at the center. And now I'm going to measure 1.5 inches from that, from the top and the bottom, and that's where the next buttonhole is gonna start. And I always like to just place my button there and then just chalk on the other side of it. So that way I know I'm making it the right size for my button. So 1.5 inches, chalk, place my button there, and mark. So now I know exactly where my 3 buttonholes need to be. And this one, it looks like I'm gonna move it over a little bit. So we got one here, here, and there. So now let's go add these buttonholes to our fabric. So adding interfacing is not the only thing you need to do. We also need to make some adjustments on our machine. So let's head over to the machine and I'll show you how. So one thing that can really make a difference is choosing the right buttonhole. Now, if you don't have options on your machine, I am going to talk about how to use just a regular buttonhole at the end here. So if you do have an option, I would suggest one that has a curve to one side or even a rounded edge to both sides, or one that has more of a spaced out stitching in it. So it doesn't have that satin stitch in it, which is going to prevent it from really stretching out. So any of these with these open stitches are going to be a really great option. Today, I'm going to be using the oval buttonhole. So no matter what buttonhole you choose, you want to make some adjustments. I'm going to suggest that you make your stitch length a little bit longer, and I'm going to suggest that you change the pressure on your foot on your machine. Mine is on the screen here. So this is my foot pressure adjustment. I'm going to make it less. I'm going to make it 4. So yours might not be on a screen. Just find out where you adjust the pressure for your foot. And those 2 adjustments are going to help us a ton. So now all knit fabric is different and these numbers here might not work for you exactly. So you always want to test it on a scrap. And if you have a final garment you're working on, grab a scrap that's similar. And just so you know what the adjustments are doing, so less foot pressure is going to stretch out your fabric less. So if your fabric is still stretching out, looking all wobbly, try less foot pressure and try lengthening your stitch, so less dense of a stitch. This is also going to help prevent it from stretching out and getting all wobbly. And before I mentioned, you could use the regular buttonhole, and these are the settings you're going to change if you are working with the regular buttonhole. But one of these other ones are going to work better for you if you have the option. So now let's add these buttonholes to the cardigan. I'm starting at the bottom of my buttonhole, and I have my interfacing on the top and the bottom. Now this should be feeding through nice and smooth. I'm not pushing it or pulling it. If you feel like you need to push it or pull it, you really want to change your settings. So it should be feeding through nice on its own. And if you are using a round buttonhole, you're going to notice it's going to make that shape at the very end here and then come back down. And if your shape isn't looking round, you need to adjust your settings. And you can see how nice that fed through the machine on the front and the back. Now let's add the other two buttonholes. Let's take a look at those buttonholes in detail, and I'll show you how to rip off the interfacing. So you can see they look nice and flat. They're not puckering on the back or the front. And to remove the interfacing, we are literally just going to rip it. I love this tearaway interfacing. I think it's so gratifying. I love all those little noises it makes. And also, once you wash it once or twice, all those little extra bits stuck in the buttonhole will come out as well. So now that we have the interfacing ripped away, we can open it up. And again, those little white pieces of interfacing are going to disappear when you wash it. They will pop right out. There we go. So you can see, even when I have that buttonhole open, everything is nice and flat. Nothing is pulling. It didn't get stuck in the machine. The machine didn't eat it. We've got a nice buttonhole on some knit fabric. And so today we learned that you can use interfacing on the back and the front where you're putting the buttonholes to prevent your machine from eating it. And the foot pressure makes a huge difference working with the knit fabrics, along with your stitch length and choosing the appropriate buttonhole for your fabric. So hopefully next time you need to sew some buttonholes in knit fabric, it's no longer going to be stressful. And if you remember in the beginning, I was talking about something called grosgrain ribbon. Well, this is something that you can use behind your buttonholes for reinforcement, but it stays there permanently. You cannot remove it. And this method works great, but you cannot use it on a curve. And our cardigan had a curved shape to the front of it. So there was no way we were going to be able to sew a stiff, straight piece of ribbon around that curve and have it lay flat. Not happening. So this method is only for straight areas on a project. Let's check out this vintage sweater I have. So I've got this gorgeous beaded 50s sweater. And when I flip it to the back, you're going to notice they've got this grosgrain ribbon here acting as a reinforcement for their buttonholes, which is awesome. This is a great way to do that. And then you could always put some water soluble on the front of it to prevent it from stretching even more. And if you look at these little buttonholes, you're going to notice that the stitches are spaced out quite a bit. Hence, they made that stitch length longer for the buttonhole in this knit fabric. Thanks so much for watching Sewing Anastasia today. If you have any questions, leave it down below and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. And if you're not yet a subscriber, well, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching today. These videos are for you guys. So let me know what other videos you want to see down below in the comments. And if you want to learn more about sewing, well, make sure you come on into my design studio and take some classes with me or online. Links are down below for everything. And if you want to know what's going on in the studio, well, check out my Instagram account. Thank you so much for watching today. Bye.